Chess friends, welcome back to a new episode of the Heroes of Chess Middle Game. And today we're covering a very famous theme used by one of my favorite YouTubers, GM Smirnov, which is to take is a mistake, so capturing is an error. I'll show you, obviously, we must always try to interpret these maxims. I'll show you one of my games where this theme was actually very, very present. In the meantime, let's contextualize it right away. What does it mean? To take is a mistake. So capturing is an error means we don't make an exchange. We don't make a capture if it leads to nothing. And I must tell you, the examples, the game we're about to see from this point of view is very, very fitting. So, I'm playing with white. My opponent is around 2000. This is a tournament from 2023, so it's a relatively recent game. And I play e4. My opponent plays this Sicilian to try to surprise me. I played this Sicilian with knight c3. Let's say I don't necessarily want to play a closed Sicilian, but usually when I played the move knight c3 here, let's say I intended to play this Tivakov Grand Prix with bishop b5. Let's say with which I've also had several quite nice wins, but anyway, here my opponent plays a6, and so let's say against the setup with a6, obviously I can't play with the bishop on b5. And so the idea is to recycle the bishop like in a classic Sicilian, a classic closed Sicilian with g3 and taking advantage of the fact that black played this move a6, which therefore potentially, let's say, wasted this tempo. This is a bit the idea of the variation, just to contextualize the opening as well. I start with knight e2, which gives me a bit more flexibility. Because anyway, now, depending on black's setup, I can still always play with d4, so returning to an open one. That said then, after g6, now I play with g3, and so we've returned to what I already anticipated. Bishop g7, bishop g2, and let's move forward a bit with the game. Knight c6, short castle d6, these are all traditional moves, right, of the Sicilian. And here the move h3, this too is actually perfectly theoretical in this type of structure. And after e5, d3, obviously here you see white's plan quite clearly. White wants to play with f4, which is why h3 gives me a better grip, right, on the g4 square, which otherwise risks being a problem for me. Knight e7 was played, everything normal so far. Bishop 3, knight d4, f4, and f5. Okay, f5 on his part, probably anticipated. So let's try to think also in dynamic terms. No, here black, okay, it's not like he's that far behind in development, but he is a bit behind in development. So here, probably he should simply castle. In short, fixing what needs to be fixed, and then in the future, maybe play for f5, since I can't play f5 here with white anyway. The pawn is hanging, and there isn't enough compensation to justify this move. So short castling here was the move for him to play. After f5, I have to say that probably, let's say, I wasn't very precise because both now and later, I could have probably played in a slightly more effective way. For example, by quickly breaking in the center. Actually, this is a very logical thing, right? I have a lead in development. My opponent is behind. He's opening the game. He can't afford it. So generally, the best choice for me will be to open the game. And so here I slipped up a bit more than anything, let's say. I played a move. Now, I played this opening too quietly. It might also be because I wanted to play that Grand Prix with bishop b5 by Tivakov, and so I didn't remember this one very well. So I said, oh well, let's just place the pieces. But you see, I wasn't very precise both now and later. Probably I should play to open the position because I have a lead in development. Anyway, queen d2 was played, and here, my opponent's first mistake to take is a mistake. So never capture if in fact we gain nothing from that capture. And here my opponent plays knight takes e2. This move, in my opinion, is a fairly significant mistake because the knight on d4 was bothering me a lot. Obviously, it's a square that's blocking my position. And in any case, I still always have to be careful about the weakness on c2. And obviously, I can never really capture on d4 in the short term anyway, because obviously, if I do that, he just takes back on d4. And then I have a fork on my two pieces. So in short, knight takes e2. You see, to take is a mistake. Capturing is an error here. Absolutely unjustified. Black simply goes and exchanges one of his most active pieces for a piece that honestly wasn't that active. And here again, he continues to underestimate development, playing queen c7. And here a huge mea culpa because I was much too quiet in this position. Playing the classic rook e1, a normal move, the famous simple move that you shouldn't always play. Because here was the moment when you had to go complex, because obviously with the king in the center, you're asking for it. And so I have to open the game here. F takes e5, and then I take on f5, after which, obviously, I arrive violently with a check with queen h5. And it's already clear that black's position becomes problematic. He has to defend with the knight. And now there are some interesting squares. The d5 square you see stands out. The engine even finds a very strong sacrifice here with rook takes a5. Very, very strong, which obviously exposes all of black's weaknesses. But beyond rook takes f5, it's obviously clear. As you can see, white's position here is very interesting. So, my mistake in this game, I must say, it's not my style. I played a bit too safely. Rook to rook 1, and I could have played better. Certainly my opponent castles, and I continue to play once again a bit too solidly. I play king to h2, which was honestly unnecessary. Yes, this game, I don't know. For some reason, I wanted to take 0 risks. It was a first round. Yes, I could have played better anyway. My opponent plays rook to b8, rightly wanting to, let's say, obviously take space on the queen side. I play queen to d2 here. The idea of queen to d2 is that I want some control over the dark squares. Maybe one day when I capture, I want to have access to the square. h6, and it's okay. Although again here, let's say opening the lines like this could have suited me because black has some problems here with this center. If he captures, everything is damaged. He can't push, so he's a bit in limbo. Probably, again, I definitely should have captured. So I'm showing it to you structurally, to give you an idea of how to play these positions. And I'll also give you an idea of how not to play, because here I play knight to d5, and here my opponent captures. Okay, this is not to take is a mistake. This is a good move. Why? Because here black gets something, that is, he gets this structural change with this pawn that seems very strong, mind you. It gives me space. I'll have space for the whole game. However, in some way, my initiative on d6 closes because this pawn effectively provides defense to his as well. So maybe I should have avoided it. Bishop to d7. Now I play c3. Obviously, I want to keep this diagonal closed, or at least occupy this diagonal. Rook to 8, queen to f2. And here we come to the ultimate emblem of capturing being wrong. Look at the gifts my opponent is giving. He takes f4. This move is a major mistake because what's the point of capturing on f4? I mean, I improve my piece, I've destroyed your center, and look what a great initiative I have. So again, the point of the video, this famous to take is a mistake, is don't capture when you gain nothing from that exchange. And here black gained nothing. Yes, he opened this, but, well, he also conceded. And here he continues. Rook takes e1, rook takes e1, rook to 8. You already know capturing is a mistake, so obviously I don't capture. Look what I play, rook to e2. Why rook to e2? Because I want to play queen to e1 and I want to take control of this file. At this point, my opponent had to fight against this plan, so maybe a move like bishop 5, right? It keeps the file closed, puts the bishop in a fairly active position, because I can never really capture, because then black recovers. Let's say this center, right? And instead, black makes this mistake here, which is rook takes e2. Again, capturing is a mistake. Why? Because this move does nothing good for him. On the contrary, I capture with the queen, and now my queen has total control over this position. See how his queen is stuck? Defending d6, so she absolutely cannot come here to challenge me. So with this exchange, he simply handed me the file. So you see how many times capturing was a mistake in this game. Let's move quickly because I want to show you something important about the endgame. King f7, h4. I'm trying to gain space. Obviously, I'm more aggressive, so I'm potentially trying to put you in trouble, trying to create weaknesses. Bishop c8, queen d2. And after queen e7, my idea, of course, was to play d4 and then break open the queen side. Look at the idea. The idea is that I'll now be able to play c4 and c5, so I'll try to create my advantage for this endgame. He played queen d8. He didn't have much of an idea how to develop this position. I continued c4, take, queen b6. Now I want to play c5, and so the bishop goes to e3. I also reposition the queen. Obviously, I'm threatening c5, and at this point, I finally play c5. Bishop d7 and c6, see? I've created this asset for my victory in this endgame. Bishop c8. Let's briefly get to the point where the queens are exchanged. So I exchange queens here. This endgame, officially with perfect play from Stockfish, would even be a draw because black somehow manages to maintain a sort of cage. So I have trouble breaking in. However, in human play, black is simply paralyzed. And this endgame, do you know how to win with white? You win like true grandmasters, which is by doing nothing. By confusing the opponent, I'll now show you that my king first went this way, then came back this way, then went back this way again. All with the goal of confusing him for a moment before delivering the decisive blow. Let's look at the game. So the king slowly arrives over here. He can't do anything. No, the king arrives here, realizes he can't get past the bishop, goes around, the king makes a feint. And then now, look what happens. The king goes back to the other side, slowly, two feints, a feint here, a feint there. Anyway, the position is totally dominant, right? So I can feint. Now that I've feinted everything I needed to feint, I go back to the queen side. My opponent got distracted, and now he's put the bishop on the square where he shouldn't have put it. And so, let's say I have the chance to break into the position with a bishop going to a 5. Or worse. If you now take this pawn, I'll now enter here with the king, and then I'm going to take this pawn. Obviously, then I'll help my pawn to promotion. So my opponent played with this a 5. But obviously now I have a clear target. And so after that, I brought the king and took the pawn. Obviously, this endgame is no longer in question because my king managed to get in. Actually, it's not even necessary here because I can block with the bishop and then obviously promote. And my opponent resigns. So anyway, a little bonus from this game, this technical endgame where you don't just win strategically, but you also win psychologically by trying to confuse the opponent and leading them into an error. This technique is used especially by Carlsen. Carlsen is the king of this technique, for example. But let's say I wanted to show you this game to, let's say, demonstrate this concept to you, which is catching an error. Obviously, it's an extreme concept, but the point is exactly this, that let's say making a trade where we don't, 1, have a need for it, 2, with that trade, we don't gain anything except improving the opponent's pieces. And so the to take as a mistake of the good Grandmaster Smirnov applies. So I tried to bring this theme back to you here on the channel, and that's it, as always. If you want to support my channel, subscribe, leave a tactical like and a little comment, and I'll see you in the next videos.